Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is a brand new exclusive story from my incredible friend, Daniel Baldridge. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story, entitled The Battle in the North. Let's get straight into that. It's been 9 moons since I was banished from my lord's land for a crime I did not commit. I was framed for the murder of the lord's most valuable slave. No matter how hard I tried to plead my case to the council, they all agreed to sentence me to be outlawed. That meant I could never return, and I was fair game to enemies, the wilderness, and even to the very people from the land I used to call home. After the ruling was final, I had to leave immediately or suffer getting attacked by the people, or worse, killed. In the heat of my escape, I managed to grab my axe and shield, only to have the skin on my back and my boots on my feet. Not enough if I was going to have to survive in a new, hopefully, well-promising land. My name is Bjorn Magnusson, son of Leith and Jorgen Magnusson. My late parents had only one child and were wealthy farmers who wanted me to grow up and to be a farmer just like them. It's a peaceful life, boy. You do well to best learn it and apply it. My father would always tell me, but I had a temper and a bad attitude and always got into trouble growing up. I wanted to go on adventures and raids with the other warrior men and women. My father was hard-driven and a hard worker, whereas my mother was the calm and supportive loving woman who had always told me, be true to yourself and let the gods guide you to your fate. I guess you could say my temper and thirst for the adventure got me to where I am today, banished into the cold and unforgiving Norwegian forests. Is this what the gods had in mind, Mother? I asked while staring at the warm fire, trying to shake the cold from my bones. My black wolfskin coat was drying next to the fire, along with my muskox boots, as they are the only defense I had in this icy bitterness of the Norwegian winter. I managed to catch a couple of snow hares from the homemade traps and had them cooking over the fire. Looking at them made me shake my head in disappointment. Going to need more food than that soon if I want to survive, I said to myself as I checked the meat. Once they were done, I peeled the meat and threw some of it out as an offering to the land and the gods for allowing me to not go hungry. I even gave some to Skadai, the god of winter, just to humor her and hoping she might be in my favor. Here's to you, I said as I ate the rest of the meat and also toasted Odin and Thor as they may protect me and guide me on my new adventure. With my stomach full, boots and fur dry, I covered up and put on some more wood on the fire to keep me warm throughout the night. I had just finished putting on the last log of the fire when I heard it. A long, deep, bellowing howl that echoed through the frozen forest that made my whole body tensed. At first I thought it was just some distant thunder from the faraway mountains. But then it came closer, and this time louder and more intense. My mind raced and my blood boiled as fear and anger came over me. I lit a branch for the light so I could see better in the dark, and I raised it over my head, looking into the everlasting darkness, searching for what might have made that sound. And then I heard the crunch of heavy footsteps in the snow behind me, and heavy, labored breathing mixed with deep, guttural grunts. I picked up my axe, and with the fire in one hand, my axe in the other, I was ready. The footsteps, they seemed to be circling me slowly, but at a steady pace. I focused on one area where I heard them, when they came more from the other side of the fire, and there were two of them. I thought quickly and yelled out in rage as I was ready. I threw the branch into the fire and grabbed my shield, hitting my axe against it and taunting whatever was out there. And then I heard a loud yelp, like an animal being struck down. This caught me off guard as it was all silence again. I couldn't hear anything except my heart vibrating my whole body. Just then, out of nowhere, a huge black mass of fur and teeth jumped out of the darkness and tackled me to the ground, snarling and growling and biting at my face. I reached for my axe, which was knocked out of my hands from the force of this beast. I grabbed the axe and swung it hard and struck the beast in the shoulder. It gave out a gutful yelp and backed off of me. Immediately I just got to my feet when I saw another one come charging at me. The eyes glowed yellow from the fire. Its black fur was darker than the night itself. And as it charged, I braced my shield and threw all of my weight into the blow against the beast's face. Hearing its bones crack and seeing blood spill paint, the snow a crimson red. I quickly came to my senses and realized these were just wolves, but they were huge, about as big as a full-grown moose. I quickly saw the one I smashed into the shoulder come at me again, but this time instead of running on all fours, it rose onto its hind legs. My eyes widened and mouth dropped open. Its paws were not paws, but hands with razor-sharp talons. And as it came near and raised its hand to strike, I quickly ducked underneath its deathly swipe and slammed my axe into its stomach, tearing fur and flesh in its wake. Blood covered the snow and most of my face. As I stood up ready for the next attack, I noticed they both were just staring at me with those intensely burning yellow eyes. Hearing the labored breathing from the one I'd slashed its stomach, it made me laugh, and I shouted, "Come on, kill me! I will be glad to dine in Valhalla tonight." But they just stood there, bleeding and watching me, with their eyes filling with rage and hate. And then, all of a sudden, they both rose up onto their hind legs and seemed to talk to one another, with grunts and growls. All the while looking back at me and then to one another again. This angered me as I was not done. I picked up the branch from the fire and threw it at them, thinking this would entice them, but one of the beasts, I caught the fiery branch in its claws and held it and looked me in the eyes. And with one snap, it broke the branch and let it fall to the ground, as if to say, "I will be your death." After what seemed to be an eternity, the beasts went back down to all fours and ran off into the night without making a single sound. I stood there, stained with blood and sweat dripping off of me. I felt the burning sensation from the slashes on my face and a deep gash to my left ear. I walked back to my fire and placed the blade of my axe into the fire to get it red hot to seal my wounds, as they were very deep. And after I wiped off most of the blood from my face and wounds, the axe blade glowed bright red, and putting a stick in my mouth, I reached for the fiery hot blade and bit down onto the stick as I pressed the blade against my flesh. The smell of burning flesh and blood filled my nostrils as I let out a muffled scream of anguish and pain. I spat out the stick into the fire and laid on my back to let the pain drain from my body, still contemplating on what had just happened. I just closed my eyes when I heard a low whimper coming from ahead of me in the forest. I shot up, my face cringing in pain from my freshly sealed wounds. "Oh, so you've come back to finish me, eh?" I yelled, getting to my feet, and I grabbed my axe again with my shield, my axe still hot from the fire, thinking it would be of good use to bring my hot steel blade to its flesh. I yelled, getting to my feet. I grabbed my axe and shield, and with my axe still hot from the fire, thinking it would be of good use to bring my hot steel blade to its flesh. I started walking carefully towards the sound and heard it again. I was very close, and I readied myself and charged into the dark, swinging my axe blindly. And then all of a sudden, my feet hit something, sending me falling face first into the frozen ground. I quickly stood up, licking the blood from my busted nose, and looked down at what I tripped over, and it was one of them. I rose my axe to strike, and that's when the beast looked up at me, and I froze mid-strike. That's when I looked it over and realized it was much smaller than the other two, and its eyes were black, not yellow. I then saw a long cut down the left side of its body, all the way down to its hind leg. It looked up at me and gave me that same whimper I had heard earlier, with its tongue hanging out to one side of its huge, fang-filled maw. "So, that was you all along, huh?" I said as I lowered my axe, still on guard, not knowing what could happen, for I have already seen what they can do. "Give me reason as to why I should not slay you, beast," I said, while still gripping my axe tightly, pointing it at it. I let out a long, deep whimper and met my gaze with sorrowful eyes. That seemed different than the others. And then it tried to stand, but its wounds were too severe, and it fell down crying in pain once more. I said, sheathing my axe and throwing my shield over my shoulder. "I guess if you wanted to, you could have growled or even tried to bite me, but you didn't. Okay, I will help you, but if you betray me, I will kill you, dog. You got it?" It seemed to understand me, and it blinked those big black eyes and gave out a similarly puppy-like bark as it wagged its long tail. This wolf beast was twice the size of me and very broad. I wonder why the other two attacked it, or if that's what happened. All these thoughts were running through my head as I looked the beast over. And 20 minutes must have passed, and I was still wondering what to do about its wounds. I don't want to make it mad or have to make any noise, so it wouldn't draw any attention. "Let's wait till morning. We will see about those wounds, huh?" I said while giving it a light pet on its massive head. It seemed to understand and smiled a very intimidating, toothy grin. I shook my head, still in disbelief at this whole situation. I got up and walked back to my fire and laid down on my elkskin, taking one last look at the beast. But I could still see it laying there, watching me with hopeful eyes. "Don't betray me, beast." I sighed and immediately went to sleep. I awoke feeling the warm morning sun on my face, and my body ached and was stiff from the wounds and the battle from the night before. I looked at the fire as it was just embers now, but then I saw the beast lying next to it, not even 5 feet from me. I jumped up, shocked to see it so close. "What are you doing, beast?" I yelled. "Sneaking up on me like that?" It raised its head and opened its wide mouth and yawned. It made it sound like when wolves yawn, kind of a... And I laughed and walked over to it, holding my hand out. It sniffed and licked my hand and wagged its tail, brushing the snow from side to side. "Well, let's look at you, beast, see what we have to do." I began looking over its body, and I was shocked to see that there was not a scratch on it. Its wounds, they had completely healed. It just had long scars down its left side. "What in Odin's name are you, beast?" I asked, shaking my head. It just gave out another playful bark and stood up on all fours. Its size made me step back. I was standing face to face with the beast. I noticed that his hind legs were not like the others. This was just a huge wolf. So, you were attacked too last night, huh boy? I asked, looking under its hind legs and checking to see if it was a male. Yep, you're a big boy, all right. I laughed and scratched his head. This horse-sized wolf was different. It didn't have the evil malice as the others. My guess is they attacked him, or he tried to attack them, and lost. Of whatever the reason, I'm glad. He's a good boy. My thought last night over, how the wolf could heal so quickly. Normal wolves are not this big, nor do they heal so fast. I decided I'll try to make a friend, since it looks like we both are outcasts. Maybe it is fate that we met, beast. Huh? What do you think? I asked it, and it gave an affirmative bark, which was deep and loud. If the gods will it, then I shall call you Bayon. He seemed to like his name and jumped up and down, making the ground shake beneath my feet. Okay, boy, settle down. We got to get some food first, before anything. And with a feeling of newfound confidence, I went to pack up my camp, and that's when the howling started again. Bayon's ears perked up and he growled, eyes looking into the forest.
The Battle in the North. Part 2. Let's get straight into that. The howls and roars echoed through the frozen forest. Bjorn's hairs raised on the back of his neck. His whole body was tensed as if ready to attack. Whoa, boy. Easy now. Easy. Soon, boy, we will have our revenge. I promise. But we must be smart about this. I said, patting his head as he lowered his growls and replaced them with an affirmative grunt. He gave me a playful lick on the face, his huge tongue drenching my beard and face, making me gag on his rancid breath. Oh, boy, that's enough. Your breath smells like a moose's ass. He then proceeded to nudge me to his back, almost like encouraging me to climb on. You want me to ride you, boy? I asked with a raised brow. He grunted and almost gave a playful smile, and with his tongue hanging out the side of his mouth, panting his breath into my face. Okay, I shouted. Just don't breathe on me. I laughed and playfully shoved his head away. Grabbing a handful of his fur, I leapt onto his back and steadied my position in the middle of his back. It was not as comfortable as the horse, as he was way bigger and much more muscular than any horse. How's that, huh, boy? Feel alright? I asked while stroking his massive back and thick fur. He gave another one of his affirmative grunts while he looked back at me with those big black eyes. Alright, boy, let's go get some food, I shouted as I gave a light tug on his fur, signaling him to go. And without warning, he took off with such speed, it nearly threw me off as we rode off, leaving behind nothing but an icy mist. As we rode on, the icy wind bit and stung at my face like 1,000 tiny ice daggers. But surprisingly, my legs and body were warm thanks to Bjorn. I noticed he never got cold, or even as when snow fell on him, it just melted away, making him no match for the harsh winter weather. We rode until we came upon a clearing, just as we reached the end of the forest. I just happened to look down and saw tracks. I tugged at Bjorn's hair, and he stopped as if he could almost read my mind, because he saw them too. You see that, boy? That's food, and it's close. Real close. He wagged his tail and gave a tiny puppy yelp. I jumped down and drew my axe, examining the hoof prints. These here are elk tracks, boy. We will be eating real well soon, I said as I rubbed his head. He knelt down as I climbed on his back, and we slowly crawled following the tracks and not making a sound. I could feel his heart begin to race as it almost vibrated to my legs. "Easy, boy. Easy now. Patience," I whispered. As we followed the track, I picked up a branch and quickly cut off the rough sides and sharpened the tip for a makeshift spear, as I know an axe is not that good for hunting, and I was not taking any chances. Within a few minutes we came upon this elk. It had its back to us and it seemed to be eating from a berry bush. I felt the wind brush my beard. Perfect. I thought, we are downwind. I slowly climbed off a beyond, spear in hand. "All right, boy, stay," I whispered. He gave me a disappointed look as if he was shocked that I didn't want him to go with me. "I need you to stay here, boy, all right? I'll be back with our food. No offense, but you are hard to hide." He seemed to agree and laid down with a disappointed grunt. I continued onward, not taking my eyes off of the elk, stopping every few feet to listen and watch. When I got within striking distance behind another berry bush, with the elk diagonal to my right, it gave me a fair shot, so I stopped and listened again, one last time. I could hear my blood pumping and the elk grunting between bites. I slowly raised to my feet, drew back the spear, and let out a slow breath. As I was about to launch the spear, Bjorn burst through the bushes beside me and tackled the unsuspecting elk to the ground with his mouth around its neck. The elk didn't even get to make a sound when Bjorn crushed its neck with one massive bite. Blood splattered the snow as its body went limp. I stood shocked and slightly pissed because he did not listen to me, but I was also very impressed as I didn't even see him or hear him. "Bjorn, you crazy beast! He was mine!" I shouted while shaking my spear at him. He just looked at me with a cocky sort of grin and wagged his tail like he was waiting for my approval. "I guess that's a good boy. You surprised me, is all. But next time, listen to me, okay?" I said while scratching behind his ears. His eyes rolled back as I must have hit the sweet spot. "You sure are a mystery, boy. But like I said, I'm glad you're on my side. Well, let's get a fire going and we will feast and toast to the gods, shall we, boy?" But he didn't even notice me. His eyes were fixed on the tree line behind us. His ears began twitching as if he was trying to listen to something. "What, boy? What is it?" I asked, reaching for my axe. His hair raised on his back as he let out a deep, guttural growl. The air was quiet, as it seemed like all time had stopped. No birds, no critters at all. And then, all of a sudden, there was an explosion from the tree line as one of them demonic beasts burst into the clearing. Roaring and snarling, the beast opened its mouth and roared, baring its razor-sharp teeth. The ground trembled as the beast charged towards us. In a flash, Bjorn jumped past me to meet the beast head-on. And I screamed for him to stop, fearing for his life, as I'd seen what they did to him before. "Bjorn!" I shouted, grabbing the spear and running after him, trying my best to catch up to him, but the snow was up to my knees. They both locked eyes, closing in on each other. Bjorn let out a fierce bark and jumped into the air to tackle the beast. But just as he did so, so did the beast. They collided mid-air, and with the beast landing on top of Bjorn, the beast was twice his size and a lot stronger. And seeing Bjorn go down made me instantly go berserk. I felt a sudden rage and no fear at all. The beast bit down onto Bjorn's face and neck, twisting and pulling at his flesh, as Bjorn let out a painful yelp. Bjorn managed to bite into the beast's shoulder and ripped a piece of flesh from its shoulder. The beast howled in pain. It raised its right hand, and those razor-sharp talons gleaming against the sun, and with one deathly swipe, brought it down onto Bjorn's face and ripped out his left eye. Bjorn howled with pain again as the beast bit down on the back of his neck once more, knowing he might not have much longer. As I was just upon them, I jumped with all of my strength and speed and tackled the beast, sending him flying off of my friend. We went tumbling over one another until I was on top of the beast. I quickly looked down at the beast and saw a scar on its stomach. You remember me, beast? Ah! I screamed into the beast's face, spitting into its eyes. I punched the beast's face repeatedly as he tried to bite and claw at me, but I was too quick, and it couldn't reach me with its long arms as I swiftly moved away from its swipes. I took out my axe and brought it down as hard as I could, chopping off its right arm, and blood spattered everywhere. I screamed again at the beast, but I was caught off guard as its left arm sent me flying off of it with one powerful punch. I was sent sprawling and landed next to Bjorn as he was trying to stand up. Stay, boy. Good boy. Stay, I whispered. I had just got to my feet as the beast was already upon me again and swiped at me, slashing my chest and stomach and knocking the air out of me as well. The blow sent me flying again and I landed hard against a tree. I quickly came to and I saw the beast was now standing above Bjorn. Odin! 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 I screamed, setting my lungs on fire. The beast looked over at me and growled, as if disappointed that I was still standing. As the beast was distracted by me, Bjorn quickly bit down onto the beast's leg, tripping him. I quickly looked around and found the spear once more. I picked it up and ran over to the beast just as it was trying to get up. I kicked it in the face, breaking some of its teeth and sending blood and teeth flying out of the beast's mouth. Then, using all of the strength I had left, I jumped and slammed the spear into the beast's chest. And with a sickening crunch, I felt the spear pierce the beast and into the frozen ground below. It looked up at me, taking a raspy deep breath, and it roared. But that was cut short as Bjorn bit down on the beast's head and ripped it off in one flesh-tearing snap. And so, with one deep sigh, I fell beside the beast. Bjorn came over to me and started licking my face. You are one crazy mutt. You know that, boy? He whined and nudged me to get up, and steam rose from my blood that had soaked the snow all around us. I went over and picked up the beast's head and looked at it in the eyes and said, No, I will be your death. And Bjorn howled in triumph. The gods were with us today, boy. We must honor them good tonight. I went over to him and looked him over. Blood stained his face from losing his eye. A couple of deep cuts, but overall, he was okay. Them wounds will heal, boy, but I'm afraid you'll have to do without your left eye. I told him while we both touched heads. It didn't seem to bother him, but it did me. He gave me a reassuring nudge and licked my face again. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, I told him. He wagged his tail in response. There's more of them, boy. We are not out of the woods just yet. I have a feeling this is a pack, and the ones that attacked us are just scouts. But don't worry, we'll fight them to the end. Odin is always watching, and he favors the bravest of warriors. So, do not fear death. Embrace it, for Valhalla awaits us, boy. I said to him, patting his head once more. Now, let us feast and toast the gods. That night we skinned and ate the elk, gave offerings to the gods, and had very full bellies. I made a new elkskin coat, fixed my boots with more elk hide, and Bjorn got plenty of bones to chew. And for a little camp decor, I slammed the spear into the ground and mounted the dead beast's head upon the spear, making it look back at the forest from which it came. We have to be on guard from now on, boy. Soon the Alpha will notice one of his scouts is missing, and they will be hunting us. But they will have it all wrong, boy. It will be us hunting them.
Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is from the incredible mind of our good friend Daniel Baldridge, and it's the third part to this incredible series, and I'll leave a link to the first two in the description box below. Of course, as ever though, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. Why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. The battle in the north. Let's get straight into that. With our bellies full and our bodies sore, we both sat by the fire and let the warmth embrace our bodies. I let out a sigh while stoking a log on a fire, thinking of what lies ahead and trying to come up with some sort of plan. Beyond not missing a beat nudged me and licked my face as if saying, "It will be okay." I laughed and rubbed his head. "I know, boy, I know. Just worried is all. We took down a few, but we have yet to meet the Alpha," I said while scratching his ear. "And nothing gets past you, boy, huh?" And he let out a soft whimper. What was troubling me was not knowing the enemy's number. Or they could be 10, 100, or thousands. That is what worries me. The greatest advantage in battle is knowing your enemy. Going into battle blindsided is not what I want to do. There is only 2 of us, and we can handle 1 or 2 maybe, at once, but not more than that. I needed to come up with a plan and a strategy if we were going to defeat these beasts once and for all. If we could just find their lair and see what they were really up to and what we were really up against, that could be a great advantage. But how? How could we be sneaky enough to get close enough to those creatures? My mind was racing with all of these thoughts and plans when I looked over at Bjorn, and he was fast asleep next to the fire. He looked so peaceful and comfortable. For you, my brother, I would fight our enemies in the Midgard alone. I sat by the fire a bit longer and decided we would follow the tracks of the last one and we would see where that would bring us. It was the only way that made sense to me. With that, I lay down and drifted off into a deep, peaceful sleep. I dreamed of an enormous alpha wolf with massive teeth and claws, tearing me apart and throwing my body around like a chew toy. I felt the pain of his teeth biting and ripping my flesh, and his claws slashing at my body, tearing it to ribbons. I kept trying to move, but I felt frozen, stiff, unable to move or defend myself. And just when I thought it was over for me, as I was nearing death, a swarm of them beasts came charging over the mountain. There were thousands of them. I saw them and immediately felt defeated, hopeless, and weak. And then I saw the alpha wolf walk over, stood over me, and open his massive mouth, and engulfed my face with his jaws. I jolted up, clutching my axe and screaming and swinging my axe. With sweat pouring off of me, I looked around and saw Bjorn just staring at me and tilting his head the way they do when they are confused. And so, realizing it was a dream, I laughed and shrugged it off, but it never really left my mind. How about some food, boy? I said while holding up some dried elk meat. He jumped to his feet and took the meat out of my hand in one swift bite. And after we ate and packed up the camp, I headed on out. We need to follow the beast's tracks, boy, and see if they will lead us to the rest. Are you with me? I asked, pointing to the tracks in the knee-deep snow. Bjorn took one look down at them, and then up at me. He grunted as if he agreed while wagging his tail. All right then. May the gods be with us, I shouted, and then we were off. And we followed the tracks through streams and hills, and found some scat and piss along the way as well. This is one big fella, wasn't it, boy? I asked while replaying the dream in my head, thinking of what the alpha looked like. Well, if the scouts were this big, then the alpha must be twice the size. I was too busy thinking that I forgot to look ahead of me. I suddenly slipped off the edge of the trail and went tumbling off down the side of a cliff. I just happened to grab a small root to catch myself with, as snow and rocks were falling into the river down below. "Bjorn!" I shouted as the root was giving way. Bjorn rushed to the edge, barking and growling. "Help me, boy!" I shouted as the root gave way, and as I felt myself falling, I felt a sharp jerk on my neck as Bjorn bit down on my shirt hind and picked me up and threw me back over the edge to safety. He threw me against the ground so hard that it knocked the air out of me. "Thank you, boy. Good boy," I said between breaths. He looked down at me almost like a disappointment. "Okay, I'm sorry. I'll be more careful next time. Okay?" He just grunted and licked me. "Right then, let's get on with it." We followed the tracks again till it began to get dark. We made camp under an overhang by the river. We ate some more elk meat and toasted and gave to the gods for being with us today. "I have a feeling we are getting close, boy. I can feel it in my bones," I said while finishing my elk meat. Bjorn finished his as well and gave out a long grunt as he stretched his body to get ready to sleep. And I stayed up again, remembering the dream. I have nothing to worry about. The gods are with us, and I have one strong, loyal brother that I can count on, I thought to myself. We don't know what fear is. We are warriors, warriors of Odin, I said again, trying to convince myself. And with that, I went to sleep more at ease. I went into a dreamless sleep. I suddenly awoke with a sound of splashing and grunting. I grabbed my axe and peered into the darkness. The fire was out and Bjorn was by my side, eyes fixed on the other side of the river. "What is it, boy? What do you see?" I whispered. He licked his lips and pointed with his nose towards the river. I looked hard and could only see a faint outline of a human-like figure crouching by the water. "Is it one of them, boy?" I asked, tightening my grip on my axe. The blisters on my hand burned with how hard I was gripping the handle. And just then, the figure let out an earth-shattering howl, and I knew it was one of them. Bjorn sat up quickly, ready to run, and I quickly whispered, "No, boy, stay. If it saw us, he would have attacked us. We need him to lead us to the rest." As if he understood, he lay down, keeping his eyes on the beast. Well, we waited and watched for a while, and then as the first light appeared over the mountains, it stopped what it was doing and started to walk off. "Come on, boy, now's our chance," I whispered quickly and quietly packing up at camp. I rode on Bjorn's back as he could move without a sound and also keep up with the beast, which I couldn't on foot. And we kept about 100 paces between us and the beast, and whenever the beast would stop and look back, Bjorn would hide behind a boulder or a well-thickened tree. At some points, we could even just drop down in the snow. It was that deep. And the sun was high in the sky when we came to an enormous cave at the bottom of the tallest mountain I'd ever seen. We sat behind another huge boulder and watched the beast go in with what looked like what was a deer in its massive claws. "This must be their lair, boy. We found it," I whispered excitedly. With my heart pounding and blood rushing, I patted his head. "Now we just need to know how many there are, boy. We need to make some sort of distraction to draw them out." I dropped down off Bjorn and started to draw in the snow. "We need to be heard but not seen. Does that make sense, boy?" I asked him. He, of course, was not understanding, but he gave a small grunt as if he did. I looked around, trying to think, and saw a huge, hollow log, big enough for Bjorn to fit in. It was behind a hill and opposite the cave, and well hidden. "Okay, boy, here's what we will do." And I pointed to the log, and just as I was about to tell him, he raced over to the log and stuck his head in and began to bark loud and aggressive. "By Odin's beard, boy, you surprise me more and more," I said, laughing. His barks were very deep and even made my skin crawl with how loud they were. "This should get their attention," I said to myself. He barked a couple more times before I saw one of them come out and started to look around.
"Yes, come on, you mutt," I said. "Go tell Mummy and Daddy."
Well, the beast turned its head and barked inside the cave, and one more came out, a bit larger than himself. I looked over at Bjorn and he looked at me and I nodded my head, as if saying, "Yes, it's working. Keep going." I looked back at the two, and just as I thought the larger one was the alpha, a huge, monstrous beast emerged. This one dwarfed the other two. This one was 5 times bigger than Bjorn and had to weigh more than 10 cattle. My jaw dropped, my blood went cold. This beast, it was massive. Arms super thick with muscle and thick hair. Its head was as big as Bjorn's whole body. And just then I felt hot breath on my neck. I jerked around, startled, not knowing it was Bjorn. I was in such shock I didn't notice it stopped barking.
"We will really need the guts help, boy. Did you see the alpha?"
I asked, touching my head to his.
"We need to really plan this one smart and down to the slightest detail. One crucial mistake, it could mean death."
Bjorn growled, looking at the beasts who were heading back into the cave. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. What an intriguing and absolutely juicy storyline here from the incredible Daniel Baldridge. Big thank you, Daniel, for getting in touch with me and penning this wonderful story. I feel this has a huge potential for growth and development, and certainly look forward to any further updates from yourself. Well, guys and girls, short but certainly packing a punch. Please, as ever, do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help with the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. If you're an aspiring writer or would just like to have a crack at things like myself, please do get in touch with me at the usual email as on screen, which is dmtforestofear@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Slowly getting back into the swing of things, guys and girls. Thank you all so much for your kind messages and patience. I'm looking forward to kicking off some extra long stories over the next few days from your favourite authors. As ever, I hope you're all well and happy, keeping fit and focused during these testing times. But above all, remember guys, be safe, not sorry.